Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Chrissie Mayr podcast. We are on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, and SoundCloud. And if you're listening to us right now on iTunes, please leave a 5-star review. Please and thank you. Guys, I got a bunch of gigs coming up. This weekend, this Saturday, I'll be hosting the Minds Festival of Ideas at the Beacon Theater. This is going to be a big show. Minds is bringing together great thinkers from across the political spectrum to facilitate real conversations and elevate global discourse. We will be hearing panels with Tim Pool will be on there, Zuby, James O'Keefe, Tulsi Gabbard, Ian Crossland, Daryl Davis, Coleman Hughes, Cornell West, Seth Dillon, who's the CEO of the Babylon Bee, Majid Nawaz. A lot of great people will be speaking at this event. Plus, you'll hear some stand-up, of course, from myself, Ryan Long, and Tyler Fisher, breaking up the serious panel conversations. Guys, hit me up. I can get you a discount code for this event, and that'll be this Saturday. It's going to be an awesome time. Then I'll be headlining in New York City, guys, at Stand Up New York Thursday, July 14th. Tickets are on sale for that show now. Then I'm heading to Tannersville. I don't have a ticket link yet, but I'll be doing something, I think, in Tannersville that Friday. And then I'll be headlining in Buffalo Saturday, July 16th at Nickel City Cigars. Price includes 24-hour private club membership and a premium craft cigar. I smoke cigars. I'll smoke a cigar with you guys. Come and hang in Buffalo. Then I'll be headlining in Syracuse at the Funny Bone Sunday, July 17th. That will round out my New York tour. Then I'll be going to Texas in September, headlining the Cap City Comedy Club Thursday, September 8th. Then I'm heading to Philly Wednesday, September 14th to do the Helium Club. Then I'll be in New Orleans for 4 shows, Friday, September 30th, and Saturday, October 1st at the Comedy House, New Orleans. Then Content House 2.0 is going to be in Orlando, Florida. And to celebrate, we'll be doing a Comedians of the Compound show at the Orlando Improv on Thursday, October 27th. Then we'll be kicking off our 48-hour live stream right after this show. So tickets are now on sale for the Comedians of the Compound in Orlando, Thursday, October 27th. Hope to see you guys there. It'll be myself, Anthony Cumia, Gino Bisconti, maybe a couple of special local fun guests peppered in there. We love the local flavor. Shout out to Flagrant Triggers really quickly. I got shirts for sale. The classic rootin' for Putin shirt, it's still funny, I think. Why not? Confuse your friends. Then we got the classic Mayor shirt, the Johnny Dabbler, Keep Dabbling, and the latest and greatest Simpcast shirt. $27 on flagranttriggers.com. That price includes shipping. Super soft, super cool. Get yourself a shirt and simp for me. Please and thank you. Oh, yes, there's the website right there, flagranttriggers.com. The Chrissie Mayr collection. Sounds so fancy. I'm so excited to have this gal on the podcast today. She's an entrepreneur. She is an expert in social media, and she's beautiful. Ari Jacob, hello. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me. Nice to meet you.
Nice to be here. I don't know whether I should have the camera like this, up close and personal, or this. We can see all my dolls. I'll keep it like this.
I like it. I like your setup. I have a little makeshift MacGyver. This is my pantry.
I like the setup, Ari, because it looks like you read books, but like not so many books that you're not also a fun time. It's not it's like not so many books where I'm like, she doesn't have a life. I just have this snack here that I've ordered these books, but I've ignored them. I'll read like half and then I'll get distracted and go on to the next book. But it's good to have you here, Ari. I'm sure everybody heard about everyone's heard the name Taylor Lorenz, right? And she's famous for, I guess, doxing the libs of TikTok account on Twitter. And I guess and I don't know what motivated this, but she outed this woman's, and we didn't even know that she was a woman. We're just like enjoying libs of TikTok. Taylor outed, I guess, her name, her address. crazy. It was so crazy. I don't know if she had to then, like, go into hiding. She's been getting death threats, like, and then
Yeah.
you also had, kind of some defamatory stuff said about you from Taylor as well, and I assume this was all before the Libs
Oh
of
yeah.
TikTok stuff.
That's why I've my I guess the second thing you could know me as is just someone that knows a lot about Taylor Lorenz and her antics. And um for over I think it's been about 3 years since I started sort of dealing with Taylor.
How did
And
you
so I've been watching along very closely.
Yeah, I guess let's get a little bit into your origin story because I think what you do is so cool. I feel like if you were to explain your job to anybody, say over 50 years of age, they would sort of like glaze over and be like, "Oh, that doesn't sound like a real job," you know? 'Cause it's like anytime you
Yeah,
mention
and
social media.
I went on Viva and Barnes, and, like, I couldn't
I
figure out
love
how I
them.
wasn't watching the comments, and so many people were like, "Oh, I don't like that job. I don't like that she representing influencers." They're like, "Influencers is what's wrong with society." But, truthfully, I didn't just rep influencers. I mean, at one point, I was working with Canelo Alvarez, the Mexican boxer. I was
Ooh,
working with him every day in his camp, putting his content together, putting together deals between him and brands. So I think like the easiest way to describe it is I was a bridge between big Fortune 500 companies and um, social media and celebrities that were starting to get a platform where you could advertise on their social channels or with them in any way shape or form, and then also helping them sort of grow their audience. So I worked with Canelo Alvarez. I've done some really interesting, kind of like a Madison Avenue, Mad Men meets the new age of social
yes.
media.
You're so
um,
important. You're a handler, essentially, because, like, these
Well,
creators give
I represent podcasters and people like that, so
Ooh, and your job
anybody with
is very
comment.
very necessary because us creative folks, we can't get out of our own way. We're disorganized. A lot of us have ADD. A lot of us are on a lot of pills. We can't keep our lives straight, and we want to, as we grow, connect with sponsors and you know maybe higher level guests or something. So someone like you is very important. I wouldn't say,
And I
you know, and of course there
Yeah,
are
and
some
I guess
bad influencers.
what was different about me too is I worked in, digital for a long time. So when I think I was must have been like 23, I worked for a digital agency, and so I was, learning a lot of the technical aspects. I mean, I taught myself how to do graphic design when I was
Wow.
16. It wasn't popular to do that back then. In order
No,
to
you
put
should have been giving hand jobs like I was.
So, yeah, I mean, I basically dedicated all my 20s and half my 30s to building my career. And just, you can't go to college for social media marketing. So you have to get
Not
in
yet.
and grind and work for people for free and basically, get used and abused, but it was all going to be worth it for that moment when you finally make it. And so that moment when I finally was about to make it big, I'm talking making millions of dollars, Taylor Lorenz came into my life, changed it pretty drastically.
What and you used to rap, and I only remember her because, like, I still am not on TikTok, and I know that we're both big fans of GaryVee, and I listened I've read at least one of his books. I listen to him, follow him. I think he's great. I think he's a lot of people think he's corny and cliched, and
Yeah.
I know a lot of comedians make fun of him, and they'll just shout, like, vaguely inspirational quotes, but, like, he genuinely, uh, inspires me, so
People don't realize that he was
yeah.
sort of the godfather of a lot of what happened on social media. I met him in 2009, and back then nobody knew who he was. I think it was when he wrote his first book, Crush It, around that time, 2009, 2010. I know because I have a video with him where I interview with him with a BlackBerry. So there's like, it's all choppy. It's so, it's not high end, but even back then when I met him, he was like, "You're going to do something big. I believe in you." And not that many people, knew what was going on in that space. So if Gary Vee's telling you you're going to make it, that was the one person that I really respected. And I mean, he discovered Logan Paul. People don't really know everything that Gary does, but he also owns a really big company called VaynerMedia, which essentially does advertising and manages social campaigns, even Super Bowl campaigns for some clients. So
Wow.
he has the Madison Avenue sort of advertising agency of today.
Yeah, and he really got in early, and I remember, like, I think I
Yeah.
was listening to one of his audiobooks, and he was like, "Get into TikTok," and I was like, "Ah, that's for later." But it's like, I clearly should've, and then Trump said, "Get off TikTok," so then I got off TikTok. But you managed I wanna know, how did you meet Gary?
He was just doing a book tour for Crush It, and I tweeted at him,
Okay.
and he responded back, and he's like, "Let's meet for coffee," and he met up with me.
Oh
Yeah,
my god!
stalked him.
Wow.
I was a great internet stalker back then on Facebook and MySpace, a whole deal.
You're like, "Gary, I wanna put you in my top 8. Let's do this. Let's have coffee with cream." Wink. No, that's very cool. And you managed, what's her name? Charlie something? She was, like, the first big TikTok star, wasn't she?
Yeah, so I had been working with brands and people on Instagram. I lived in San Diego. I went to San Diego State, dropped out, started a company. Then I worked at a nightclub. I was the VIP manager, and so I dealt
Mm.
with a lot of the high net worth people and the celebrities and whatnot. And I had run into a friend who was really big in tech, and he's like, "Why are you still down here in San Diego? Ari?" He's like, "You own influences.com." He's like, "You need to go to LA and go up there and meet all these people." So he gave me somebody's phone number. He's like, "Call this person." And then that person, Dan Fleischman, introduced me to a bunch of people, and Logan Paul and all these people. So I moved into essentially what was the dorm of where all these, it wasn't a dorm, it was an apartment complex, but the biggest internet stars in the world lived there at that time, which was at that time was like Vine and Instagram. So
Oh
I'm
my god, remember
immersed with these
Vine?
people. Yeah.
Everybody loved Marlo Meekins, and she was huge on Vine, and then
I
she
never
just
saw
didn't
her.
really translate to another app. She would do such hilarious things, like, it would just be a small video of her dog, like, floating away on balloons, and, it would be her just, like, obviously lifting it up, but, like, from behind, and now people do that all the time with their fucking
Well, you
babies,
had to
and
be
I'm like,
really creative on what was that we were talking
on
about?
Vine, yeah, on
Vine,
Vine.
Vine. And so when TikTok came about, it was already Musically, and I didn't know much about it, to be honest with you, but I was working with this kid who was like 18 years old, and it was all the rage to him. So I said, maybe there's something here. And so I started going on there, and I'm like, wow, these kids are really, creative and funny. And they remind me of this app. I forget what it was called, but there was another, I think it was called Dub Smash. Did you ever see that app?
I've
It
heard
was,
of it.
they had like, I don't know, movie quotes and things like that. So it was very similar to TikTok, but one of those things, it was just TikTok came at the right place at the right time, I guess. And at the time, it kind of seemed like these creators were very lost. Were they were just making videos and they were getting millions of views, and then all of a sudden a lot of people at that time were just watching, and so there was millions of people on the app, but nobody was really willing to dance around or do whatever it was, be voyeuristic and put out videos. So if you were making videos at that time, imagine like a TV channel where only the same people are on the show or on TV over and over. So it was much
Mhm.
easier that if you were willing to get on in front of the camera, that you were going to get a larger share of the attention. And so I met a girl because I was working with a kombucha company. I reached out to her. I said, "Hey, do you want to maybe do a deal with this company?" And then she said, "I don't have any help. I need somebody to, I'm getting all these emails. People are taking my videos. Should I tell them not to? Should I?" So then I said, "Well, why don't we talk about maybe working together?" And that's when I really just basically started repping a bunch of TikTok people. GaryVee, we went out to New York, and somebody on his team introduced me to Charlie D'Amelio's family. She was a young girl, and her family was sort of new to everything as well. And like I was saying earlier, it's kind of like I found a bunch of ponies in a field that were lost and needed help, and I
Needed
went
wrangle,
and
yeah.
yeah, and I wrangled them, and I gave them support and helped cultivate their creativity. And then they became unicorns, and they grew horns and wings. And then at that point, I didn't realize what a big target was on my back,
Mm.
especially because at that time was when, the pandemic happened. And then you look at Hollywood, right? There's no music touring, there's no actors getting work there. I mean, Jimmy Kimmel's not even on
Yeah.
the air, or,
No Broadway shows, no live studio audience, no concerts, no
so where
comedians.
do you advertise too if you're an advertiser? On TikTok, right? On Instagram. And these people were getting, I mean, Charlie D'Amelio at the time, I think she was getting like 50 million views on a video, or at least at some point she was. So
Mhm.
think about how many people watch the Super Bowl. 20 million, maybe 30 million.
Holy fuck. Wow. And she didn't even have to have, what was it called? A costume malfunction? A wardrobe malfunction.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Okay, so
So
she's getting her videos are getting 50 million views. Did she want to and she was so young. Was she like 18 or something?
yeah, so this is actually winter of 2019. So I'm repping Charlie, her sister Dixie, this kombucha girl, several members of this thing called the Hype House, where basically one of the and I call them kids, but I really need to stop
They are
doing that
ki
because it's a
they
bad
are
habit.
kids. I
But
get it though.
Charlie was a kid; she was 16, but almost everybody else was over 18. Like I think she was the only one that wasn't. Her and her sister, I think her sister was like 17. But anyway, and then this girl, Addison Rae, who Addison now hangs out with the Kardashians. She has a movie on Netflix. She has
I've
a
heard of
three-picture deal.
I've heard of her. Yeah.
So, um, I remember going into a movie with Universal Music and sitting with one of the top executives, and I almost wanted to cry because she was laying out a deal that was one of the most lucrative deals I've ever seen for an influencer. This is after we do a Super Bowl commercial with Charlie in it and this girl Brittany in it. And at that point, when I was in the Universal meeting and this everything was getting laid out, and then this executive goes, "Hey, I'm going to give you a phone number or contact information for these three huge music attorneys." I look because she's like, in order to do this deal, you need a legit music attorney, and it can't be any of ours. So here's who I recommend. I look these people up. It's like Mariah Carey's lawyer, Rihanna's lawyer.
What?
I'm like, what?
Wow.
And then I'm like, how am I going to afford this? And she goes, and so then I call one of them and he goes, no, the way it works in Hollywood is if you're a big enough celebrity, we'll just work on 5% of what you make. So I'm like, okay, this is freaking awesome. Like, and then all of a sudden, because when you have a real lawyer, now all of a sudden people aren't going to mess with you as much. I felt that's what I
Yeah.
thought, right? That's what I felt at the time. Because I was bootstrapped. I mean, I never took an investment from anyone at that time. And I always just worked odd job to work for people for free. Like when I went to San Diego State, I used my book money to invest into a company I was building. Like I
You
always
wrote a
had to do
book?
it
Oh,
sketchy. No, no,
no.
no. I had to sell
Oh,
my
okay.
my college my college money for books.
Okay, I was gonna be like,
I
wow, I
sold it
suck.
so
I
I
didn't know
could
you
start
wrote a
a
book.
t-shirt company. No. No.
Wow. Okay, that's awesome. So you've been an entrepreneur since, like, day one.
Yeah. So at this point when Charlie's hot and everything's happening, um Taylor Lorenz reaches out, which was really weird because I knew Taylor from when she worked at the Atlantic, and she reached out to uh she actually didn't reach out to me. She reached out to Charlie's mom on a DM, which was odd because she had my email, she had my contact information,
Yeah.
and all of the influencers had like Charlie at influences.com on all their socials. So everybody knew that if you emailed them, probably I was going to get the email, right? Because it said my domain, influences.com. So she kind of, in my opinion, sneakily went around me, DMs the mom. They're from Connecticut as well. So, and Taylor's from Greenwich, Connecticut, allegedly.
Mm.
And so, which is apparently a very rich town.
Yeah.
And she decides that she wants to do an article about these TikTok influencers that have been sort of collaborating together in this house called that they sort of named the Hype House. And the interesting thing was that I represented 4 or 5 of the influencers that were there. And when she came out to LA, the one kid that was in charge that I didn't manage essentially told my clients, from what I understand, don't tell Ari that we're doing this photo shoot with the New York Times. We don't want
Oh,
Ari
no.
here. And then it was really odd, but nobody nobody, like, it seemed like everybody ghosted me for a week when that was going down. All my clients that I was doing deals for, working with brands. And so they do this New York Times article, and no mention of me that I manage them, but mention of this other kid that he kind of plays it off like he's their manager, but he's not, right? I'm doing the actual deals with them and everything. There's things in writing that would show that. So the article comes out, and then we're flooded for about a week. We're flooded with emails from, Bunna Murray that produces, MTV stuff, the Real World. We're HBO Max, Dunkin' Donuts, L'Oreal, Maybelline, all these brands. It was like the world woke up to TikTok and to these new faces. And that was when I went in and met with Universal and all this stuff. So it was probably one of the most exciting times of my life. At the same time, I was about to go broke at that point because I had invested so much in the company. And these deals that you do with the influencers, it's like you get paid on a net 30, net 60, net 90. So you do the deal and you don't get paid for 60 to 90 days. So it wasn't that I wasn't doing, all the right things, but when you're bootstrapped, that's just how it is. So I was just working to survive, but I'm like, we're right there. I mean, we did it, and everybody was at a point to grow and succeed. And it was, to me, a really happy time. As soon as Taylor gets involved, writes that article, I just felt like something was off. And I had a publicist even tell me, hey, be careful of Taylor. Like, she's not your friend. Here are the different things that, she just came on to the New York Times. Her editor came from Gawker, which is sort of a tabloidish place. And he had been interviewed and said that he was going to shake up the style section and do things that were, more risky and things like that. So, because you're talking about the New York Times, it's a old newspaper. Most influencer, young people, Gen Z, they're not reading the New York Times.
No.
But they want to be in it. They understand the prestige of it. Even I understood it, right? I wasn't into really politics. I didn't really understand media at that point, not at the level that I do now. But in terms of when your clients are asking to be featured positively in the New York Times, it's a really exciting moment. Like, you want to go pick up every newspaper and hang it on the wall.
Yeah.
So I was kind of bummed that they didn't include me in it, but whatever. It wasn't about me. I'm a behind the scenes person anyway. I just felt like, okay, now everybody's going to come for these people, and they're going to see that they're with influences, but they're going to say, well, whose influences? So that's when I learned there's 3 big talent agencies. I already knew this, but WME, CAA, and UTA, United Talent Agency, are like the 3 big dogs. There's a couple other ones. But UTA really sort of wanted to be the digital, the most sort of prolific digital team in talent management, or talent as a talent agency. Sorry. And for
like
anybody watching that doesn't know, in Hollywood, this is how it works. They say that they have managers are the people that look over your full career, and talent agents are the ones that negotiate the deals, like an Entourage. Did you watch Entourage?
Yes. And I've also worked with Jeremy Piven, who was very rude to me once, and I'll never forget it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I joke about it all the time. Like, I hosted for him the stand-up show in White Plains like a couple of years. It was years ago. It was definitely in the before times. Yeah, and he was like he was rude to me. It's a whole nother story, but
that's funny. Well, those guys, they have a podcast. It's called I'm friends with Kevin Dillon. But they all had, I think they all kind of had beef maybe with Jeremy, but I met him once too.
Yeah. His hair plugs look great though. I mean, I wish him well.
So then I'm like, in the middle of this Hollywood thing, and essentially about a week or 2 after the New York Times article comes out, something is starting to feel weird. And I get an email from most of my clients at that time saying they want to leave and they're going to go. And then they said that they are leaving. And then 2 days later, there's a press release. They're signed to UTA.
Ah, damn it.
So this is just round 1. But listen, I'm sitting there like, hey, I still manage Charli D'Amelio. And there's a lot of YouTube or TikTokers that are like, we don't care. We want to go with you. So my mentor at the time, he's this he's a very prominent African American executive in television and film. And he's like, listen, Ari, you could sit around and mope around and cry because you lost your golden goose, but you're good at what you do. He's like, it's okay. He's like, they're UTA, they're WME, like, they've been around a lot longer. And, you know, you just got to move forward. But I learned, I said, okay, well, I got to get these people to sign physical contracts so that they don't do this to me again, because it's not right. It's not right that you develop these people and then bigger dogs come in. They don't offer anything better than I did. They want to be order takers, because what happens is Dunkin' Donuts, all those people, they're emailing the talent. They're not going out to get you a movie deal like they're doing for Brad Pitt or whoever else. You get what I'm saying? Talent
Right.
agents used to be hunters. They just want to be order takers now.
I'm so glad you brought up the Dunkin' Donuts thing, because I remember it was during the pandemic. We were going to Dunkin' Donuts every single day because it's in my comfort zone, but it was like part of our little routine. We'd go on our walk, and I remember I saw like the Charlie. I think this is when it started. There was a Charlie Dunkin' Donuts drink, and I was like, were you part of that, or was that something that the new agent did?
I got the email. Charlie@influences.com. And then at that, like a week later, she was already gone. So they did the deal. But I guess the thing that's so frustrating is like people think like, oh, well, she got that deal because she's with UTA and she's signed to UTA. And so excited. But that's not why she got the deal. UTA doesn't even have the relationships. I mean, maybe they've worked with these people, but what's different with this space is you don't know. Like if somebody's casting for a movie, to bring your client in. You don't know if Dunkin' Donuts has $100 million spend or whatever, like $1 million spend to spend on an influencer, until they go to a meeting with their marketing department. They say, hey, who should we choose? And then they just reach out to you, to your email.
Wow.
So I sort of pick myself up and I go to this conference in Florida. I think it's called Playlist Live. And I bring people that I wanted to sign or that were signed to me, and we had an amazing time. I ran into Taylor Lorenz there, which was weird because she was so sketchy. Like,
Wow.
it felt to me, and obviously, like you don't have video or whatever, but I'm a very sort of like empathetic person, and what it felt to me was like she was being so fake, and she wanted to meet my clients because I was there with some really big content creators. And at one point, I remember taking a photo of all of them and like being like almost going to ask somebody else to take a picture to put me in it with all of them. And she's like, oh, I gotta go. Like she did not want to be in a photo with me.
How squirrely. And like somebody doesn't act that way if they don't feel like they've done something wrong.
Well, I think she knew she was about to do something to me and I didn't know it,
Oh my God.
So whatever. So that was my interaction there. I actually even invited her lunch and she's like, no, I'm good. And she leaves. So I have the picture of my clients with her, but that's it. And so then, and I think we're about around the same age, but I think her and I are very different people. Just I worked at nightclubs. I worked with guys. I was popular, not to
You're
like
down to
toot my
earth.
own
You've like
horn or anything,
Yeah.
but all the creators would like chant my name, Ari. So I could see from someone's perspective that maybe doesn't get a lot of that type of attention, or I don't know what to call it, but I could see why she wouldn't like me, right? I don't know.
Yeah, because
And
you're a
so
fun hang and she sucks and she's stuck up and she's from Greenwich, Connecticut. Like I get the
I don't
full
want to
picture.
say it.
I said it. I'll say it.
And by the way, like I'm single, like at this point, and I still am, unfortunately, but so I'm fun. Yeah. And I'm out.
Yeah. DMs are open. Yeah.
So then I think that was at the end of February. Then in March, I threw a party and I brought Doja Cat, which was a big deal. It was like a launch party. We had content creators that were in content houses, and that's how they would collaborate. So this was for the girls next door. And then in May, she reaches out and she's like, hey, I'm doing a story about just all the content houses. So I start telling my creators, I'm like, you guys, this is how Charli D'Amelio got famous. I'm like, Taylor Lorenz did an article about the content house and everybody blew up and this is our chance. I'm like thinking, how do we recreate
You're my new
this?
goose. Yeah. Goose
Yeah, I'm like, we're
yeah.
gonna do it all over again. I know how the sausage is made, and this is how we're gonna do it.
Yeah.
So by the way, I'm telling these content creators who she is. They don't even know who she is. They're like, who is this Taylor Lorenz? I'm like, oh, she's not your friend. I'm like telling her all the things that my publicist told me. I'm like, but she could really bring you into mainstream consciousness, which is what you need as an influencer. Until you are on Good Morning America, until you are on New York Times or whatever, nobody, these executives, these older executives at these big companies are never maybe going to know who you are. Additionally, you can't get verified, which is the sort of the holy grail for influencers. You can't get a blue check mark unless you have enough press. So that's sort of a little carrot that mainstream media journalists can dangle in front of content creators, is saying, hey, I'm going to include you, and then you're going to get mainstream media, and then you're going to get verified. They don't have to spell it all out. The content creators understand that. They know that they have to have 8 to 10 articles in mainstream
even
media.
then, I mean, I have that and they keep rejecting me. So it's like I haven't cracked the code yet.
Well, and here's the kind of behind the scenes knowledge of this, is that once you have a client like Charli D'Amelio, the floodgates open with people that want to help you, right? So Instagram reaches out, oh, well, I want to make sure you have a rep and like anything you want. And so once you have a rep for Charli or Mr. Beast or whoever it is that they want, then all of a sudden I say, well, how about this person? Oh yeah, sure. We're going to give, there's a portal, and they give managers a portal to submit people. The other odd thing was that Instagram was going to give me a portal to submit people. And then UTA was somebody from UTA, an agent that was we were sort of working on a client together. They were dating somebody at Instagram, for what I understand, or they knew somebody. They were very close ties with Instagram. And then all of a sudden the email stopped of when I was going to get my portal. So if you don't have a portal as a social media manager, you kind of like have, handcuffed. What can you do?
Portal.
Wow. It's important, right? Yeah. So at this point, Taylor does this, somewhat positive article about everybody in the industry, anybody that had a house, anybody. It's a pretty positive article. And she sort of, sprinkles all the top influencers, all top houses. But as she's doing this, she's also getting all of these people's contact information and their addresses.
Sneaky.
So she does this article and she puts a little quote in there where I said something about marketing or whatnot about the house. But I wasn't a public figure. I was just trying to talk about the projects that I was working on, not as me as talent at all. So she gets all of these people's contact info, and that was in May. So in June and July, I think, is when she started sort of snooping into my life. And I had heard people saying, hey, I got a call from Taylor. It didn't sound like she was doing a positive article about you. And I'm like, I was so confident at that time. I'm like, well, what could she possibly write about me? I've never done anything wrong
yet. Yeah.
I just was so sort of innocent and naive about it all. And I had my hands full managing a lot of TikTokers and sort of their internal dust ups, and nothing crazy, but it was sort of like her wrangling cats all the time. And it almost felt like being a dorm room monitor, hall monitor.
Oh yeah.
In addition to building decks out to show the brands what was possible. Hey, we've got a bathroom. You could, wrap it with L'Oreal stuff or Redkins or whatever it was that we were thinking about doing. And the brands were really excited about it. And they had known me for a long time because I was working with them when I worked in digital. So everything was going good at this time. I wasn't completely broke anymore, and people were making money, but these new people were not making millions of dollars yet. They were on track to get there. And then some of the smaller ones, they just wanted to hang out at the house because then they could get more followers, So I let them. I'm like, if they're going into the house, they're signing a liability waiver, an NDA, which states which states that they know that there's cameras, which states that anything that's filmed on property is property of my company. copyright and everything, and that they have to tag my brand. So there's all these rules. So for them to come in, and they can't harass me or anybody else in the house, la 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 la. This is all stuff that costs money. To lawyers have to come up with all this stuff, and it's all new because you're talking about TikTok houses. So I have a lot of IP, intellectual property, that I've generated. So then August comes around, and Taylor hits me up, and she's like, "Hey, I want to do can we chat?" And at the time, my friend Matt, who was just like a family friend, and he had reached out because he's like, "Hey, do you want to go on Fox Business?" He's like, "Trump's trying to shut down TikTok, and they want to talk to a TikTok expert." He's like, "It'd be kind of fun." He's like, "I mostly focus on politicians and a lot of smear stuff, and it's all of it is pretty stressful. So I thought it would be fun to do this TikTok story with you." And I said, "Sure, I'll go on Stuart Varney in the morning. This sounds kind of fun." So he sets me up, and I'm like doing that. And then right around that time, Taylor's reaching out, and I hit up Matt, and I'm like, "Hey, does this seem normal to you?" And he's like, "My spidey senses are going off that something is very odd." Because he asked me to ask her what, like, what's the story about? And she wouldn't tell me. And he's like, "Well, that's weird, you know." So he said, so finally, I I got a call from this talent agency, one of the agents there that was purporting to be my friend. And he calls me, and he goes, "You should really talk to Taylor." Uh, you know, and he's trying to tell me, "She's not going to say anything bad about you. She likes you. She just wants to hear your side of the story." So long story short, she writes a damning article about me, of lengthy, like if you print it out, I think it's 4 pages, in the New York Times, paper of record, about a subject that nobody knows anything about. So most of the time, you're just going to take in what you read about something that you don't know. Uh,
And what year was this? Did this come out?
August 2020.
Okay. Wow.
So she claims in the article, and by the way, before she publishes, she said she sends us 50 questions, like back and forth. She's not getting what she wants. And my attorney says, "Hey," so I don't talk to her, but my attorney, my friend was like, "Why don't you let the attorney talk to her?" And uh, most people would just say no comment. But I was very, I had conviction that I didn't have anything to hide and that I wasn't guilty of anything. And so we offered her evidence, but she wouldn't take the evidence unless she could print it. And so I didn't want her to print my intellectual property like publicly, because then I would have no leverage against my competitors. And I was in NDAs with huge brands. So if she's asking me, "Did you pay these people on time?" and XYZ brand didn't pay on time, but I paid as soon as they paid, I can't show that. I can't show her the receipts without myself then being in a lawsuit with a huge, huge company. You get what I mean? She put me sort of, she backed me against a wall. And so the article said, among many things that were incorrect and completely false, that I leaked nude images of a client for revenge. I was filming the influencers without permission, that I raised their rent, that I hiked up their rent, that I didn't pay them, that I was withholding money, that I was claiming to manage them when I didn't manage them. And the worst thing that really pissed me off the most was that she made it seem like I didn't know GaryVee. She's like, "This person says that Ari was, Ari claims that GaryVee mentored her." And the very next sentence, "We called GaryVee, and he said he has no affiliation with influences," which I guess technically is true. And they never asked us.
Company that, like, yeah, that's the company is different than you as a person.
Yeah. So then it was pretty devastating. My advisor, the one I told you, the executive who's big time in Hollywood, he calls me the day the article drops, and he's like, "Welcome to the fucking big leagues, Ari."
Oh no!
Like, what are you talking about?
Did you frame it and put it in the bathroom?
Like, did you read it? I was a mess at that time. But he just, he told me, "Nobody writes a 4-page article about someone like you in the New York Times unless you really mess with their pocketbooks." And he goes, "I know you. I know you didn't do any of this stuff. So you got to fight back if you got it in you to do it." So I spent
What was
almost
the worst thing she said? of all the things in the article?
I think the fact that well, it just the gist of it was that I was taking advantage of kids. Now, one of the brands of the houses was called the Kids Next Door, but most of those people, I think only one was 17 and a half. Everybody else was 18 to 23. So it made it seem like I was really like manipulating young like teenagers
Uh,
and that I leaked their nude photos for revenge. I think that might have been the most sort of
wow.
the other thing too was that they said that I call or they said I got in an argument with them and that they called and that the cops were called to the house twice. But we told Taylor I called the cops to the house twice because the influencers were they spray painted "fuck Ari, Ari's a bitch" all over the walls.
Oh my
Uh,
god. Wow.
so
And you're like, you probably had, like, a deposit down or something, right? It's like, yeah, you have to pay for to have that fixed. Man, that's horrible.
yeah, I was just trying to keep the uh, I was trying to keep the house brand together, even though there were some outliers that were troublemakers. But I think maybe what happened is once Taylor, think about it, you're 18, 19 years old. A New York Times reporter calls you and goes, "Do you know about the allegations about Ari and like all these things she's doing?" And blah, blah,
You
blah.
just believe them. Yeah, you're just like, "Oh,
And
oh, your
one
authority."
kid who
Yeah.
was, yeah, one kid who was 16, he said that she was doing the same thing to him. And when he said that he didn't want to give her any information, he goes, "I like Ari, she's my manager." The next day she texted him, she was really disappointed in him. A 16-year-old.
That's manipulative. Wow. Don't take
Yeah.
that tone with me. Why so somebody just took a nude photo at the house? Because right, they're like 17, 18, 19, 20 years old.
No, no, that's not what happened. So, another manager reached out to me and said, "Hey, Ari, your brand, your influences.com is being posted in a, um, a Telegram forum with like, I don't know how many thousands of people in it. And it's showing like a screen. When you look at your phone and you look at the photos, it's just little squares, the
Oh,
little
yeah.
thumbnails.
Yeah, the grid, yeah.
So, so there's a thumbnails of sort of what looks like some nude photos of this guy Devion, who was the head of one of the houses. It was all boys. It was called the Drip Crib, and the Drip Crib was collaborating with the Girls in the Valley. These are two houses that I manage, and in the Girls in the Valley there was a 17-year-old. So I was sort of alarmed, and I'm like, well, is are you sure that this is Devion? Send me whatever it is because I'm not sure you're talking about. So the manager sends me what, according to him, is already leaked all over Telegram and all over the internet. So I reached out to Devion on text and I said, "Hey, why are your nudes all over the internet?" And I send him exactly the screenshots that the manager sent me. And he goes into this long story about how his somebody leaked into his iCloud. This is months before. This is like in May. So before the article is written. So then how is she going to write in the article that and by the way, I didn't leak nude images. I had contracts, NDAs with people who worked for me. Like, think about it as like a company and the HR.
Yeah.
And I sent it and I said, "What do we do about this? Because we're going to be held liable. What if he did something to one of the girls, God forbid? And then
Right.
who are they going to blame
You guys. Yeah.
for not
Mhm.
for not investigating it?" Right?
Yeah.
So I wasn't doing anything nefarious. And the way she wrote it, she's like, she leaked images of it, just that word. I think just the word
Yeah.
leaked. What does it imply?
Like you're just
Uh,
sending it to someone random or you're posting it online or something. Yeah.
and I think just by nature, if the nudes were already leaked all over the internet, how could I leak them?
You can't
It's just,
re-leak. Yeah.
yeah. So
Wow, she sounds like she fucking sucks.
yeah, and honestly, after that, somebody pretty prominent in well, a big time executive got in touch with me and he goes, "Listen, what happened to you sucks, but this Taylor has a lot of enemies out there." And he goes, "You might not like them. You might read about them and think that they're scummy, but they might read about you and think you're scummy and you're not scummy,
Mhm.
right?" So I said, "Okay." He goes, "Why don't you just make a little Excel sheet and put together people that have had issues with her? Would you go research?" So I did. I started researching. I mean, I had nothing else to do. I had no job, no company. All my clients left. The brands were like, "We love you, Ari, but like we can't be associated to this."
Ugh,
Uh,
wow.
you know, a six-figure deal on DocuSign. Just they canceled the DocuSign that day, like the day the article came out. So anyway, I just started doing a bunch of research, and then she started picking fights with the tech community. She outright lied about Mark Andreessen, the founder of Netscape. She said that he said retarded on Clubhouse, which, by the way, I listened to a couple of your things. I'm like,
It's one of my
Chrissy,
favorite words. Yeah.
he's totally gonna come for you.
Oh man. I can say it though because I'm actually retarded on my mother's side. My great uncle was retarded. So he
I
gave
heard
me
that.
the pass. Yeah, I have to keep mentioning that in case they come for me.
Yeah, exactly. So this is just, at this point, Taylor, a lot of people, she's sort of, people don't want to mess with her, right? She's powerful. She works at the New York Times. And for me, I'm not only up against the New York Times, I'm not only up against Taylor Lorenz, I'm also up against UTA, which is a huge talent agency that has major ties into the media. You're talking Variety, Hollywood Reporter, most of the left leaning press. And even though the left should supposedly like me because I'm a minority, I'm a woman, I'm an
Yeah.
entrepreneur, all the things.
You're apolitical. You're not like
Yeah.
yeah.
Nobody wanted to talk to me. And I also realized that Taylor has a lot of friends in the media, which sort of leads me to what I found out about today. If you want to talk about that, or if you want to.
Yes, we can. Yeah.
So somebody sent me a link, and essentially nobody knows a lot about Taylor because Taylor keeps things hidden, and her personal life, which she docs libs of TikTok. I don't think anybody should be putting out people's addresses. I don't even really think, I don't want people stalking my family, so I don't want to put out things about someone else's family. But I will say that for somebody that so recklessly and seemingly maliciously goes after minorities and people who have actually worked from the ground up for what they have, it seems she has no empathy for somebody that's not an elite person. And that's why there's been sort of a lot of people look at the fact that she went to $80,000 a year Swiss boarding school.
Oh wow.
She's rich. Okay, she comes
Yeah.
from rich families. And there's an article that came out today that has a link from her uncle, because he says, "Hey, like, I'm really proud of you. Love your uncle." And that guy is the founder of the television side of the Wayback Machine Internet Archive. So if you actually go to the Internet Archive and you
Oh,
look up Taylor
fuck.
Lorenz's Twitter, it's not in there. So
Holy
because her
cow.
uncle
So
works for them.
Taylor's uncle owns the Wayback Machine.
He didn't start it. Somebody way
Okay.
smarter than him started it, but he owns the television part of it. So if you go to that
Tweet
article,
or the article, the Who Was Taylor Lorenz, the Dick Tracy
oh,
one?
yeah, well, or the tweet. The tweet
Okay,
is,
let me go to the
you can go,
tweet.
yeah,
Okay, here's a tweet.
because I think it's
R
gonna go away pretty
R
soon.
McDonald, Taylor Lorenz just saw your New York Times piece this evening on Facebook's policy statement. I remain impressed with all that you do and proud to be your uncle. Silly.
Okay, now click on him.
Classic uncle move. Okay, founder, Television Archive at Internet Archive, offering journalists, scholars, and engaged citizens intelligent and quotable access to news in the public interest.
So if you click on the Internet Archive without, and just go to the website.
Okay, yeah, archive. Okay, it's pulling up a new link. Let me get this one up here. This is sounding juicy. Okay, so here's the archive.org. This is also known as the Wayback Machine.
Yeah, in the little search box at the top, put twitter.com/Taylor Lorenz.
Hope I'm spelling that right. Oh, sorry. This URL has been excluded from the Wayback Machine. So I can't check back on any of Taylor Lorenz's previous tweets.
She can lie with impunity and nobody can check her on it.
What? Who else is
I
like
haven't seen anyone else
doing
that's
this? Let's
like
see.
on
Can you
yours.
look up Trump? Oh, no, he was real Donald Trump, wasn't he? But although his account was deleted, oh my god, but you still can.
This is how you look up old websites, old
Oh, look at this. Wow. Wait a minute. I've never looked myself up. I've never even looked at this. Wow. What was I doing these years? Interesting. Okay, this
Yeah.
is interesting. So Taylor's uncle works for the Wayback Machine and made it so that nobody can way back her, basically.
Yep. Let me see what else the article says that's interesting. I think so her and
Damn.
obviously this is somebody that went and did research. It's not 100%, but the fact that they did all this lineage about her family and then they came to this guy and they what I think they did is search his name and her name and then they found that he actually tweeted, "Hey, la la la, love your uncle," or whatever that thing said. Which by the way,
Yeah.
as soon as this article gets tweeted out, I guarantee you that her uncle's going to take that tweet down. So you may be the only one that has
Ooh, he's gonna take
a
himself off the
record.
Wayback Machine. Damn.
uh Yeah, so she's very wealthy and she has a very big if the article is true, she has a big media family. I think her sister was at CNN, she's a publicist. Her what was she announced before as to be her fiance and maybe she got married, we don't know, is this guy Chris Mims. He works for the Wall Street Journal. So now she has ties Wall Street Journal. Think about all the places she worked. She worked at the Atlantic. She worked at Business
Wow.
Insider.
Times.
New York Times, Washington Post,
An
where
uncle
at
can
Washington
just scrub her history. That's
and at the
nice.
Washington Post, that's where she docs libs of TikTok. She wrote a whole story about how the misinformation board. She's basically buddies with the girl that was part of the misinformation board. She has deep ties in the government, in media, and
Damn.
exactly, somebody said nepotism. People think that some people are like conspiracy theorists. I became friends with Rose McGowan, and a lot of people think that she's a crazy
Oh my
person,
god,
but
I've
she's
been dying
both.
to have her on. Yeah, she's
Oh, I can
awesome.
help you get her
She's
on. She
okay,
kinda
listen,
like but
thank you.
anyway,
I
she's
was gonna say,
yeah,
yeah,
no, I
she's
can
a
help
real
you, but
fighter. She's like a real survivor and, like, she's the
she's dope,
real
but a
deal.
lot of people in these Hollywood circles, they just if they decide that I was talking to a journalist earlier and she said it's human nature for us to support our own friends and power protects power. And you could say that all day long until this happens to you. You really don't understand it. And the reason why I'm so outspoken about it is because if this could happen to me, a Mexican immigrant woman who was just going along my own business, trying to make it, and
Yeah.
then it could happen to anybody.
Yeah,
And if you
definitely.
happen to work in an industry that maybe not many people know about or not many people care about, then what's going to happen to this country if these types of corruptions aren't exposed. And unfortunately, it's really hard. The U.S. System for filing for defamation is incredibly hard, and these journalists know that, so they
Wow.
just go around doing whatever they want,
Which is
and that
why
that
people
needs to end.
were so surprised when Johnny Depp won, as big as he did because it's just from what I've been hearing, all my friends on LawTube are like, it's just so hard to win a defamation case, and they just had such good evidence, but they were really shocked. They didn't see it going that way. And you know what it is? It's because like people like you're a threat to, yeah, the UTAs. I keep wanting to say UTI, but that's something
That's what a lot of people
different.
say to me.
Like they should really change their initials. Yeah, you're a threat to all these mainstream talent agencies, and like, God forbid a little guy, a little person does the job just as well because they want to feel like because they're part of the old guard and they want people to think, no, you can't get success, you can't get to this level unless you like play with the big boys. And you're like, no, I'm just some chick who figured it out, and I can help you get there. I can help you get a Dunkin' Donuts drink.
Well, and what was so weird is why didn't they offer to buy me out or work with me? they didn't have to because they're like, she doesn't have
They
money,
can
she
just
doesn't have power.
yeah,
Why
just
would
bury
we?
her. Yeah, let's
Bury
just
her.
tie you up with, I don't know, legal fees or
And
intimidation.
I know that Taylor knew that this would be a problem if I survived the initial hit piece because um at one point I was just trying to sort of get my name back and see if I could get hired in my field. And so a journalist, this girl, Christie Smythe, she offered to just kind of do a comeback story about me. And it was a kind of fairly a medium-sized publication, Business of Business. And as soon as Taylor found out that she was doing an article, she went behind the scenes calling prominent people in the media, ranting that I was a literal abuser. And that they shouldn't cover me because they shouldn't give me positive press. She went on a Twitter rant exposing Christie's editor, saying this white male, or I don't know if she said white, she said this
Oh,
male editor
boy.
is giving credence to this person and called me child abuser. You know, basically, if you were reading it, you'd be like, oh my God, this woman's a child abuser and somebody's writing about her. And so she gets her other friends in the media, who I'm sure are probably embarrassed that they sort of reiterated what Taylor said. I can't go around suing everyone. I would love to sue Cat 10 Barge and all the other people that piled on, but they pile on. And what do? I don't have any parents in the media. I don't have any connections in that world. Thank God for my friend Matt, who once we filed the lawsuit, he got me on Tucker Carlson and I talked about it. But then
Wow.
Taylor, it's easy for Taylor to say, oh, well, now I'm being attacked by the right wing radicals.
Oh god, yeah, it takes almost nothing for you to be considered alt-right, like, I know that all too well, you know, you if you're not parroting the leftist narrative word for word, they can just lump you in with the alt-right, and you don't have to show any proof, and the mainstream media will just be like, "Oh, yes, of course. Throw him in the
Yeah.
gulag." Yeah.
I'm hoping that maybe I'll be on Bill Mayer or something like that once my case gets to the next phase. So the New York Times filed a motion to dismiss, which is expected, uh, but it's really hard to get past the motion to dismiss. Typically, the thing that I have on my side is that to file defamation, it's like you either have to maliciously do it or have reckless disregard for the truth. Where we actually told Taylor we answered 50 questions, so if how could she not try to
You
do more
were
research?
participate like, you were,
And
you were
she didn't bother to interview anybody that like my mentor, the one I was telling you about, the prolific Hollywood
right.
guy, she didn't interview anybody else that was there. She didn't interview anybody else that and she interviewed that 16-year-old, but he didn't want to say anything negative, so she didn't take any of his quotes. That
And
is
then she told
like
him she was
malpractice.
disappointed in him. Yeah, because he didn't say what she
That's like
wanted him.
journalistic malpractice, and I think now I mean, she recently got called out because she wrote an article. Of course, she supports Amber Heard, right? She's a
Of
big
course.
Amber Heard supporter, and she writes this article and she misquotes, or she said, "I reached out for comment from Legal Bites, which is a legal YouTuber."
Yes, I've had her on, she's
Oh, you
great.
have? I have to
Yes.
watch it.
Yeah, she's
So
great.
they say that they included a quote, but they never reached out to her, and so then Legal Bites calls her out, and everybody sort of is like, this it becomes a huge news story, which thank God it is. But isn't it crazy that a story about somebody not reaching out for comment got so much news? And then my story is like, this person said I leaked nude images and
Oh my god.
everybody's like, well, we don't know if she did or not.
That's the thing, is like, if you just if you're an asshole for a long time and you don't it just seems like she's someone where she's been uplifted, she's rich, she's well connected, not a lot of accountability on her part. She can be toxic, manipulative, and it's been what's worked for her in the past, but, after a while, karma does catch up to you, and exactly, like, when you start connecting with other people who've been screwed over, by
Yeah,
her.
and once I filed the lawsuit, it was kind of I felt sad because a lot of people came out of the woodworks. One lady said that she ran a Facebook group. I think her and her husband were attorneys. I don't know if she was practicing at the time, but anyway, Taylor wrote this article, made her look like a racist, and they had to like move. She quit her job. I mean, it created so much turmoil. And this woman's like, I didn't have any recourse because technically what she wrote, it's hard to sue. And they're lawyers and they didn't even sue her for defamation because at that point, maybe 5% of what she wrote in that article was true. you know?
Wow.
And so thank God in my case, from what I understand, really like we have a lot against her. The New York Times hasn't lost a libel lawsuit in 50 years. So if Taylor is the one that sinks them, that's embarrassing for her. Like,
But epic for you. Yeah, and great for everybody else. Great for libs of TikTok.
well, it's going to be great to depose her, interview her, and see what kind of lies she makes up. Because there's a little bit of, I know I have a little bit of hubris of like, I'm a little overconfident about it. But when you have the truth on your side, it does, and it does feel like the tide is turning. I know it's going to be difficult. So regardless of anything, I'm glad I tried my best. But
Yeah.
um, you know, people like this should not be allowed to have that much power. And
And they do
how
because
many
they're
more
well.
lives are going to be destroyed?
Yeah, I mean, we don't all have an uncle at the Wayback Machine. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. So
It's just a funny name for something. But damn, so what are the next steps now for you? Because I'm sure she never expected you to sue for defamation or literally do
no.
anything because she figured she could just intimidate you.
Well, the one thing that I have outside of the truth is that I kind of am like a little social media nerd. And so, for example, like if you I think if you search Taylor Lorenz on Twitter, my account shows up like number 2 because I put her in my bio. I mean, there's not a lot
Same.
somebody without you kind of have to be resourceful and scrappy. And if I want people to I just want the reason why I want people to know my story is not so that I can get a settlement from the New York Times or something like that. I want to take it to court. I want a judge and jury to just like Amber Heard got her day,
Mhm.
I want my day. And I think it's going to expose a lot of corruption. And I think a lot of people probably would just take a payday. I mean, obviously I have to like lean into my attorney and see what happens, but I want to go as far as possible because I do think these things are worth doing. I think truth matters. And history, I don't know who said it, but history is written by the winners, right? And so if she wins, then history isn't written right.
She gets to tell
Right.
the story. Yeah.
Yeah. And I have a lot of sort of personal, uh, like emotional ties to it. I mean, I dedicated my 20s and 30s to this company, knowing that at the same time I could have been focused on like finding a husband and having kids. And I honestly living with those TikTokers, there's no way that if I had kids and I was married, I was going to be able to dedicate the amount of time and energy into my craft. And so the fact that she took that away, I mean, I always had this sort
Wow.
of
I really
kind
feel
of
that. That's what I feel like
illogical,
yeah.
right?
I feel like that's what I did with, like, with comedy and stand-up, like, literally and
Yeah.
my mom even made fun of it, like, sinking the best years not the best, but, like, for
But
having a
it's true
family,
though.
the
It's
dating,
totally
mating
true.
years, and it's like you invest all of that into building something, and when somebody, like, essentially takes a shit on your bed, Taylor,
Well,
you
and I
know.
had this sort of illogical dream that I was gonna do something great. I'd be on the cover of Forbes one day, and then some hot, successful, kind, funny guy was gonna reach out, call his people were gonna call my people, and then that's how I was gonna meet my husband.
I
But
hope that can
then
still happen.
yeah, that's what my girlfriends say. They're like, "Well, now you're doing more things out in the public." But you know what I'm saying? I really just wanted to be known for leaving a legacy of doing something good in the world. And the fact that she took it away from me unfairly, if I would have done something wrong, I can own my mistakes. I would have fallen on my sword and said, "I effed up. I need to take responsibility." But this is not one of those times. you know,
Wow. Yeah,
I
and people already know her as, like, a doxer and a horrible person, so that's definitely not in her favor.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I just think things like that catch up with you, regardless. I think Brian Stelter called her out recently, Oliver Darcy. People
Oh,
on the left
no.
don't like her anymore either.
Yeah, well, that's not good, and everyone hates Brian Stelter. Oh, this was a super chat I missed earlier. Eve Barlow's Rotten Crotch. Wow, what a name. I think it was Taylor Lorenz that got my Twitter account taken down today. Really? Please, everybody, tweet out save Eve. Okay, maybe this was a joke, but all right, I feel your
Oh, I
pain.
talked to that guy, by the way, that was in
Oh,
his,
really?
And his the guy that was in the Johnny Depp lawsuit that, like, pulled out a vape?
Yeah, yeah.
I hit him up as I'm like, "Hey, are you gonna be a TikTok star now?" So next time I'm in LA, I'm gonna link up with him and see if I can help him.
Oh, wow.
He
Good for
he was
you.
just so I just liked him because he's like, "Listen, I'm in this thing 8 hours, like, I'm not getting paid for today. I'm telling the truth. Now leave me let me go live my day."
Yeah.
So,
They're tired after that.
I know.
I got a couple more super chats here. Local Miguel, hi Chrissy, looking forward to seeing you in Texas. Frostbite, that's an inside joke. Nvidia, not to distract too much, but I loved your Father's Day pics. Oh, you and Filing Cabinet, that's my boyfriend, are so cute together, and you look good, and you look to be building a great family. Oh my God, I can't handle any comments that aren't like dick jokes or inappropriate. Thank you guys. Thank you. Well, this is like thank you for coming here and spilling this tea. This is very exciting. I hope she goes down. I hope she
Thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate you taking the time, and I don't know, I think girls should stick together. There's so much room in this space for people to be successful. I don't care what your political views are. If you put in the work, like I really admire the fact that you said that you gave up that time to put into comedy because it people like Sheryl Sandberg, they're going to write a book about how you can do it all and lean in and
You
yeah, at that time
can't.
you
You
work for a
definitely
huge
can't.
company and you have babysitters and like no. It's like
Yeah.
not possible to do
Get
it all. Sorry.
rich, have nannies, raise your family. It's like it seems to be like a race to get not even famous, but like make enough money. So it's like, and you got to do it quickly before you're too
Yeah.
old. So
Yeah.
it
Well, you look
sucks.
great. I
Yeah.
honestly thought maybe you were like 25.
I'll
So,
take it. Oh god,
yeah.
oh my god. Ari Jacob, everybody. Um,
Uh,
no, this is
Thanks
so
for having
great.
me.
Thank you for coming on. You'll have to do a Simpcast or something. That's my fun Sunday night
Yeah, I
show.
haven't watched one of those, but I maybe I
It's
watched a
less
minute or
serious.
2.
It's a
They're
hoot.
just fun.
This is exciting. I'll be watching all of this. I'm really rooting for you. Where can people find you and follow you and all that good stuff?
I'm Little Miss Jacob on pretty much everything, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. Uh, and on my YouTube page, I just got monetized, so I'm excited. I'm gonna do more live streams and things
Mm.
like that. I wanna try to maybe talk about other things other than Taylor Lorenz. So that's where I'm going now. But I do want to shed light on this issue just because I hope people are watching to let's make sure that that motion to dismiss that we beat it so that we can actually get the evidence and go to a fair trial. I think that's important.
Absolutely, especially people like Taylor Lorenz, which like it's so much nepotism. It's so disgusting. It's like, yeah, like
Yeah.
I don't know. It really pisses me off. Like, you said it too good for too long, and you're just
But
asking for
it was
accountability. And
allegedly
then
she was demoted at least at the Washington Post. So I guess well, she says she wasn't, but some people say she was. So
wow. And it's the thing is like there's no reason to take you out. Like there's plenty of room for be a handler of new influencers and you can you have no control over whether people like leave you to go to a UTA or whatever. But that doesn't mean like you should be put out of business and you don't have the right to exist or work. So this is just
everything is really
canceling.
interconnected is the issue, and I think once sort of, once somebody writes like that in a very small community, uh, as somebody tweeted at me the other day and they were like, "I remember that New York Times article. I thought you were freaking terrible, but now I feel terrible that I thought that." So,
Yeah. I used to
but
think the New York Times was a reputable paper too, and then you grow up and you learn.
yeah, well, and then now I just hope maybe I can make some waves in terms of truth in the media and exposing this stuff, and then maybe one day I will write a book, and who knows? So maybe my mentor was right that welcome to the big leagues thing is true. It really sucks to be in your mid to late 30s and like start all the way over, but I'm not gonna like cry myself just to sleep every night. I have to just get up and punch back. And I've had a lot of great mentors and even young, like male, women, young people that have reached out to me and I the Taylor Lorenz hater club is actually becoming pretty freaking cool. A lot of tech billionaires, a lot of
Wow. Yeah, have a
prominent people
meetup.
in the media. I know, right?
Maybe that could be your future husband.
So
Yeah, and you know what? If GaryVee were here, he'd probably say something like, people that are successful, they lose it all. They get it all back. He would say that you're still super young
Yeah.
and not
I
to
mean,
sweat
I
it.
saw Gary recently and he said, well, first of all, his buddy asked me about everything and he heard me talking about Taylor. And so Gary puts his hand on my shoulder. He's like, Ari, he's like, it's over. You got to move on. He's like, I get it.
Oh,
You want to talk about it, but he's like, you can keep going. And I appreciate that. I mean, I also was like, Gary, you haven't been canceled. So I'll take that with all the respect and admiration I have for you. But also, after the article came out, he also reached out and was like, just keep doing good work. You'll always be recognized for doing good work. And I do believe that. So I don't
yeah.
want to just be a hater. I don't want to, I'm not like a bitter person. I was always
You're
just really
not
happy normally.
coming off that way at all. You just want, like, accountability.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you just wanna be understood. So, I will be following this story. It's very exciting. She
Thank
sucks.
you.
We love you, Ari. Everybody follow Ari if you're a
I want to
fledgling
come to one
TikTok
of
star.
your things. So you
Yes!
said, when is the one that's with Seth?
That's actually this Saturday in New York
No way.
City, at the Beacon Theater. Yeah, if you wanna come, I can get you on a list.
Okay, maybe I'll
Yeah.
look into it because I was supposed to go to New York for NFT New York. Um, Maybe that would be cool. There sounds like a lot of cool people going to that
Come
one.
to this thing. Yeah.
Okay, we'll see.
Awesome. Thank you
All
guys
right,
in the
thank
chat.
you, Chrissy.
Talk to you soon.